Alright, what's up everybody? I'm back with another video. Hope you guys are all doing well. In today's video, we're going to do Expressz. So this a big equation over here in sum of products form. It's very simple, and let's get straight into it. So the first thing we want to do when we express z in sum of products form is look for how many letters there are. So we have an A, B, a C, and a D. So because there's 4 letters or less, that means we're able to use a cardinal map, right? And we're able to construct a proper cardinal map. But if it's 5 letters or more, that means we have to use algebraic rules to try and solve it, to find the sum of products form, which is a bit more difficult. But if you guys want me to do a video on that, please comment down below and I'll make sure to do one later on. But let's start off simple with 4 letters or less. So now we know that we can make a cardinal map. Now, before we make a cardinal map, what we have to do is we have to convert this z into z bar. And the way we convert this into z bar is we have to change all the ors into ands and all the ands into ors. And I think when we get going, you kind of get what I'm trying to say. And if we change the ors into ands, basically what we do is every time there's an or, we have to end it. So this inner bracket would then become a bar, b bar, c. Does that make sense? So we got rid of the ors and we anded them. And because there's an and here, we have to put a plus, and that's for all of them here. So you put a plus. This A, C bar, and D becomes A, C bar, anded with D. So all these come together. We put another plus sign to signify an or. Then we have B, A, D bar, plus again with D bar, A bar, C, B bar. Now, we're not done yet, as the next step that we have to do is we have to then convert the bars from one letter to another. So if we have an A bar here, it just becomes A, and if we have a C here, it becomes C bar. Now, a better example to be visually shown to you, it can just be A, B, C bar, right? So this then becomes that because we invert the bars, plus A bar, C, D bar, plus B bar, A bar, D, plus D, A, C bar, B, right? Now, if you guys understand that, now we can finally finish this equation. And this is the equation that we're going to first use to solve this problem. All right, so now that we've constructed our equation for the z bar, which is basically the inverse of the equation in the question, now we have to do is construct a cardinal map. And now we're going to construct a 4x4 cardinal map. Oops, sorry. Pretty bad line drawn there. So now we're going to construct a 4x4 cardinal map. And what this cardinal map is going to do is it's going to help us plug in the ones to formulate the better equation that we need to get the product of sums. And so now that we got the equation of z inverse, which is the inverted formula of what is in the question, we have to construct a 4x4 cardinal map to represent the letters. So let's go ahead and do that. So we have a 4x4 cardinal map that we're making right here. And if you guys want any more specific details on how to construct cardinal maps or circle cardinal maps and fill them out, please comment down below. And I'll make sure to make another video more in detail, specifically just on cardinal maps on how to do that. But for now, this is just the generic way of how to fill them out, right? So this is generic for every single cardinal map. They will all look the same this way, right? So we have A, B in this corner, C, D in the top corner, and we have 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1, and 1, 0 going across horizontally and vertically in that specific order, okay? So now that we have our cardinal map constructed, we have to fill these in with ones based on this equation that we have derived. So if we look at A, B, C bar, we're saying that it equals to 1 when A and B are both equal to 1, right? So when A and B are both equal to 1 in the third row, so if we look at the third row, A and B are both equal to 1. And then we have a 1 here when it is C is equal to 0. So we see that C is equal to 0 in the first column and the second column. So if we look at the third row and the first two columns, we can put a 1 here to represent the first part of the equation, right? So C is equal to 0 in the first column and second column, and A and B are equal to 1 in the third row. So that's our first equation done. Now for A bar, C bar, D bar, we see ones when A is equal to 0, right? So A is equal to 0 in the first row and the second row. And we see that now if we go further, we see it's when c is equal to 1. So c is equal to 1 in the third column and the fourth column, excuse me. So c is equal to 1 in the third column and the fourth column, and d is equal to 0 in the fourth column. So now we can essentially label this as a 1, right? Because we have a is equal to 0, c is equal to 1, and then d is also equal to 0, right? So a is equal to 0, c is equal to 1, and d is also equal to 0. And there's no other boxes that fit that same specific requirement, right? Now going forward, we have another one that we have to fill out. So we have b bar, a bar, and d bar. So we know there's a 1 when b is equal to 0. Oops, sorry, a quick mistake that we made earlier. We see that a bar, c, and d bar, there's actually the 1 also here, right? Because a is also equal to 0, c is equal to 1, and d is equal to 0. So make sure not to forget that extra 1 like I just did. So it's important to recheck your work and not rush it. So we have another 1 over here. Now going forward, we have b bar, a bar, and d. So for b bar, we know that b is equal to 0 in the first 2 rows once again. We know a is equal to 0 in the first 2 rows. And then we have it only when d is equal to 1, right? So when a is equal to 0, b is equal to 0. So that's in the first row only when they're both equal to 0. And when d is equal to 1, we know that this is the only box that makes sense because d is equal to 1, a is equal to 0, and b is equal to 0. Now for the next part, we have d, a, c bar, and b. So we have when d is equal to 1. So d is equal to 1 in the third column and the second column, right? So that's when d is equal to 1. Oh, all right, so now we're looking at b bar, a bar, and d. We know that we're looking for when b and a are both equal to 0. So b and a are both equal to 0 in the first row. And we're also looking for when d is equal to 1. So when a and b are both equal to 0 and d is equal to 1, that's in the second column and the third column, as d is equal to 1 in both these scenarios, and a and b are both 0. So we can go ahead and plug in a 1 in both these two squares. Now for the last part of the equation, we have d, a, c bar, and b. So we have to find when d is equal to 1, and when a is equal to 1, c is equal to 0, and when b is equal to 1. And a quick hint, whenever there's 4 letters specifically put here, all in one equation, we know it's only going to fill out a specific row, column, or square, right? So something specific that fits to it, right? So we have d is equal to 1. So d is equal to 1 in the second column and the third column, right? We got that. Now we have when a is equal to 1. A is equal to 1 in the third column and the fourth column. And then we also have when a and b are both equal to 1. So we have only the third row that applies to us when a and b are both equal to 1. And then d is equal to 1. 1 is the second column or the third column, right? And when c is equal to 0. So when c is equal to 0, we only have the first row, first column, and the second column. So after we accomplish that, then we can see that this number is actually already filled out. So when d is equal to 1, which is over here, and a is equal to 1, which is over here, and b is equal to 1, and c is equal to 0, we see that this 1 is already filled out, so you don't have to add anything else to this kernel map. All right? Now, going forward, after seeing that this kernel map is already filled out, basically what we then do is we have to label a 1 wherever there's no 1 present. So we're going to label a 1 here with a different color. So we're going to label a 1 in all the boxes that don't have a 1 previously. So now that we have our red ones, what we're going to do is then circle them the way in kernel map fashion. So if we start off, we know that we can only circle in variable of 2 exponents, right? So 2 to the power of 0, 2 to the power of 1, 2 to the power of 2. So we can only circle one square, 2 squares, 4 squares, 8 squares, right? So if we start off, we can circle these two squares in the top. We can circle these two squares in the middle. 4 squares over here. And then we can circle the 4 squares at the bottom row, as we always want to circle the most squares as possible, right? Now, after seeing that, if you guys need any help circling how to circle cardinal maps like that, please comment down below and I'll make sure to make a video specifically on that, going more in detail. But I'm assuming that to do this question that you already know how to circle cardinal maps, right? So after we circle these cardinal maps, what we're going to do is for the ones that we circled, we're going to then label it Z, right? Because think of it as this. The Z bar is what we filled out as the green ones. Z is just the opposite of Z bar, which is then the red ones that we filled out. And that is what our sum of products form is going to eventually be. So what we're going to do is we're going to formulate an equation for the 4 circles that we did. And then that will be the answer to our sum of products form, right? So if we start with the first circle, we have A, B, C, D over here in these first two, right? Let's see what doesn't change. Or so we see that A is 0 with throughout the whole thing, right? So when A is equal to 0, we can put A bar, right? Because A stays the same throughout both these two ones. B changes from 0 to 1, so we know that we can't use that. And C and D both stay the same as they're both 0, so we know we can put our equation as A bar, C bar, D bar. And then we're going to put a plus sign here, right, as we formulate equation for cardinal maps, right? So then we have these two middle ones, and let's see what stays the same. So A is always 0, and B is always 1 for these two ones. So we can go ahead and put A bar, B. And let's see what changes between C and D. C changes from 0 to 1, so we know that cannot be used in our formula. But D always remains as 1, so we can go ahead and add a D over here, right? Now for the third circle, this bottom 4, right? So the bottom 4, let's look at what stays the same. A is always 1, right? So we can put that. A doesn't change. B changes from 1 to 0, so we know that B won't be used in the formula. C always stays at 1, so C stays at 1 throughout the whole 4 squares. So we can put C, and D changes from 1 to 0 between these 4 squares, so we know that we can't be able to use D. So then we're going to put another plus sign, and for our last row, so basically the whole 4th row, we're going to have to circle that one and make an equation for that. So let's see what stays the same. A is always 1 and B is always 0 for the duration of this 4th row. So we're going to put A, B bar, and then let's see what changes between the last two ones in that row. C stays the same always as it stays at 1, but D changes from 1 to 0, so we know we can't use D in that formula. So we're going to end up putting A, B bar, and C. And that is your final answer for product of sums. So if we write that out, we see the final answer is going to be in product of sums form. I mean sum of products form, sorry. We have Z is equal to A bar, C bar, D bar, plus A bar, B, D, plus AC, plus A, B bar, C. And that is our final answer of this expression put in sum of products form. And then that is what we get. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and understood as how we solve this problem using cardinal maps. If you guys enjoyed and understood, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you guys have any questions or concerns, please make sure to comment down below. If you guys want me to cover any other topics or specific questions that you guys have trouble with and need help with, please comment down below or share the link with me through the comment section, and I'll be sure to make a video on it as soon as possible. Alright guys, thanks for watching.